Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Anthony podcast. And today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, a somewhat regular guest on the channel, Gio. So, how are you doing today, Gio?
AP, it's good. It's good. Been coming off quite a busy few weeks. Obviously, a couple of weeks ago, we had the fight. It's been 16, 17 days since then. Obviously, the big prime card. So things are calming down a bit as we head into November. But yeah, things are going great. How about yourself?
I'm a good, thank you. It's really cold today, so I'm just saying the day in bed, to be honest.
To be honest, yeah, recently the weather's turned. Me and my girlfriend noticed we went from having the fan on every night when we're sleeping to now having to put 3 or 4 layers on just to go to the shops because it's been like bitterly cold, like horribly, horribly cold. I'm not made for the cold, bro. I'm a summer boy. I've got Colombian genes. I was born in June. Like I'm used to the nice weather. The cold, me do not get on.
We are starting to get in November, so what do we expect?
Exactly. Yeah, it's technically. I don't know if it's technically winter now. I guess we're still in fall or autumn, but it definitely feels like winter. Like whenever I go outside, it's like really, really horribly cold. But yeah, take me to June.
Yeah, so, so as you mentioned, we we had the Prime card a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, you were alive. So over the live experience, the pay-per-view experience.
It was good. I had some pretty decent seats thanks to the kind people at Misfits, and seeing it up close, it was the energy was amazing. Every single person that was there got a free Prime T-shirt, which I thought was and a hat, I believe, which was a nice touch. Everyone had these sort of wristbands on that sort of glue up. So Misfits are doing a lot to try and create a really exciting atmosphere for their audience, and it definitely is paying off. The fights, some of them were great, some of them weren't so great. I think the main and the co-main event, even though it was Logan, I feel like both of those fights were a little bit disappointing. Not because of Logan's performance, but mainly because Dylan didn't do anything.
Yeah,
And the main event, KSI Fury, as we all know, was a very sloppy fight. But I mean, Salt Pappy Slim was a great fight. Dean the Great versus Waleed Sharks was a banger of a fight. Ed Matthews knockout, coming on 2 days' notice. Like there was a lot of high moments, highlights from the prime card. As a whole, I'd probably rate it a 7 out of 10 though.
as as somebody that ordered, yeah, as somebody that ordered the pay-per-view live. Because as I've said to you before, normally I just wait for a couple of I normally just wait for a couple of days, and then they put the whole card on your normal zone subscription. But this time I decided to watch it live,
Yeah,
and I've got to be honest. For the most, obviously there were some good fights. Obviously, Dean versus Waleed. I probably said that wrong,
that
and
was right. That was right.
but also Slim versus Salt Puppy, and do you know what I thought the survival tag was interesting?
It was. I had a friend who was fighting on that. I got to spend some time with him on Fight Week, a guy called B Dave, who actually is headlining the next Misfits. Really excitable guy, great personality, and also an exciting fighter. And I feel like that tag team, although there was no finish and it ended up being a draw, was a lot of entertainment. And people, the whole thing with Misfits, and we saw this as after the card, people were slating the boxing, and it's kind of like ordering a Domino's pizza and expecting an Italian authentic pizza. Like it's not gonna be good boxing. People need to take it for what it is, which is influencer fighting, And that tag team is the best example of that. It was
But,
fun.
I always say if you want to watch, if you want to watch Devontae Davis or Ryan Garcia or Canelo level boxing, go and watch. Then, if you know what I mean,
Exactly.
you're not gonna get that level of boxing from influencer boxing. They just either watch it and enjoy it for what it is, or don't watch it.
Exactly. It's the storylines, it's the personalities. If you want to watch pro elite level boxing where athletes dedicated their life to the sport, to the craft, then you're right. Go and watch a Ryan Garcia, Javante Davis, Terence Crawford, um, Tyson Fury, etc., etc. It's not there in Misfits.
But for the most for most of the card, I would a bit like, okay, this is a bit underwhelming, to be honest. Maybe I'm
The
being a bit
prime
hard.
card. I mean, there was
Yeah,
definitely some boring fights. Obviously, the Anthony Taylor versus King Kenny fight wasn't as exciting as a lot of people thought. I thought the some of the prelims were pretty good. Obviously, Astrid versus Alexia was a dogfight, similar to Chase the Moore versus Tempo Arts. There was a few questionable decisions along the way. I can't even remember any of the other fights right now. Oh, Winnerson Nunes versus my mate Nate. Yeah, I guess was an okay fight. To be honest, I actually didn't watch that in the stadium. I went backstage and watched that on a telly that was sort of in the interview area. So I need to rewatch that. But yeah, I guess you're right. You know, there was some lackluster fights, but that's what I say. Like sometimes Misfits put on amazing events where all the fights are really exciting. Like Misfits 004 was a good example of that. But then 007, and in my opinion, the Prime card didn't live up to the expectations, and that's the problem I feel like Misfits are having right now. Is that the expectations are so high, they're stacking these cards with their biggest names, with their biggest personalities, and it's really hard for them to sort of meet those expectations. Like, I think it would be very hard for them to be like, yeah, it was better than we expected, you know? And obviously with the KSI loss, and there was so much controversy around the card. I mean, almost every fight has now got a PBA official appeal, you know, for the decision. So questionable decisions, questionable controversies, different things like that. Yeah, it's it's a tough one.
yeah. He just made me think next time I'm probably gonna wait till it comes on the actual sub the zone subscription and
Yeah,
then just watch it like that.
yeah, I don't blame you, bro. I think well, I definitely be watching it live. I can't watch things afterwards because I'm always on Twitter, I'm always on social media, and I'm worried things are going to get spoiled for me. Like, and I have this bad thing where when I'm watching a fight live, I have to turn my phone on airplane mode because otherwise people will text me. If say something big happens, they'll text me immediately, and sometimes my stream will be a bit behind, and then they'll spoil it for me. It's happened so many times.
That I'm really weird like that. I can know the result of a fight, but I can go back and watch it just to see how good was the actual fight. Like the Ngannou Tyson Fury fight, I already knew the result, but a couple of days later, I went back and I saw the actual fight, and how good was Ngannou's performance?
It was incredible, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think he did something that no one expected him to do. We obviously knew he had the power to put Fury out or Fury down, and he showed that. But to do it in the way that he did, with such a clean knockdown in the third round, the whole world went silent. Like the whole world collectively gasped when that happened. And it's interesting because you say that you sort of watched it, you chose not to watch it live and rather watch it afterward. And you knew the result, but in the moment, in that third round, watching it live, seeing Fury go down, you thought like your heart drops because you feel like this could be the moment where a guy who has no experience, who's never laced a pair of boxing gloves up before, who's a former UFC heavyweight champion, goes in there and beats somebody that no boxer could beat, that Deontay Wilder failed to do, that Dillian White failed to do, that all these guys, Otto Valley and Tom Schwartz, you know, all that they enlist. Tyson Fury is undefeated, the lineal heavyweight champion, somebody that has had over 30 fights, 30 wins, no losses, zero losses. And Francis Ngannou, in my opinion, should have taken it. In my opinion, my scorecards, Francis Ngannou won that fight by 2 rounds, but wasn't given the decision. And then one of those scorecards, 96-93 Fury, is absolutely insane. So obviously they want to set up the big money fight, which is Usyk versus Fury. But if I'm Usyk right now, I am very happy with that performance because I know that there's a great chance that I could be the first person to give Tyson Fury his first loss.
I understand what you're saying, but I would also say, do you think there could have been an element of maybe underestimating Ngannou a little bit?
Absolutely. I feel like he definitely underestimated Ngannou. He thought he was just going to come in there like all of these, like for instance, when Floyd Mayweather fought McGregor, like he had his
Yeah,
moments. He had some decent rounds. He definitely won some rounds, but overall, the actual boxing skill is what won him the fight. And I feel like that knockdown in the third round, something shifted in Tyson Fury after that knockdown. He was fighting in a style that he hasn't done before. It was a lot more apprehensive. He wasn't putting the pressure on as much. He wasn't taking as many risks because he knew at that point that Ngannou had the power and the ability to knock him down. So it actually made Tyson Fury have to make adjustments mid-fight. And also something that not a lot of people are talking about. Everyone's talking about how great Ngannou was, which he absolutely was, but not enough people are talking about how poor Tyson Fury looks. He didn't look like the same Tyson Fury that fought Dillian Whyte, that fought Derek Chisora.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I don't mean to cut you off, but exactly. That's why I thought you might have been taking him for. You might have been underestimating him because the way he came into the fight, it seems like he was just going down to the shop, basically.
Exactly. And obviously he knew, the plan was December 23rd was meant to be this big fight against Alexander Usyk. So in a way, maybe Tyson was sort of seeing this as a bit of a warm-up, as a bit of a way to get all this money, which he would have got a stupid amount of money from Saudi, to put on this huge event against a huge star in Francis Ngannou and basically just have a bit of fun. And he realized quickly, especially in that third round, that he's going to have to start trying.
I don't want to take anything away from Francis, but the one thing I did say in my video is I think if Francis wants to continue in boxing like full time, I think he needs to improve on his defense and his jab.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like, Francis Ngannou showed some good boxing, but by no means was it elite level boxing to the point of like, some of the top heavyweights, especially like, for instance, I think Alexander Usyk, makes easy work of Francis Ngannou. But I think there's some interesting matchups now. I believe WBC have put him up there in the top 10. So potentially we could see a Deontay Wilder versus Francis Ngannou or an Anthony Joshua versus Francis Ngannou, which is exciting because obviously now Francis Ngannou is not in the UFC anymore. Apparently something to do with the PFL, but these huge bags are coming from boxing. For the next few years, we could see a similar, a Jake Paul-esque trajectory for Ngannou, where he goes and has these big boxing fights, because he fought Tyson Fury and on the cards he lost. But if he gets a huge win over the likes of maybe a Dillian Whyte or a Anthony Joshua, could you imagine? Or a Wilder? It would be insane. I think he absolutely has the chance to beat Wilder, by the way. Absolutely.
That Derek Chisora because Chisora loves a good payday, and apparently he wants to get to 40 fights or 45 fights. So I can see him taking the bag and fighting Ngannou.
Yeah, and Derek, it's his middle name, Derek War Chisora. He makes it a war, and he nullified Usyk. Usyk didn't look as good against Chisora as he did against Joshua both times, and as he did against Bellew, and even most recently against Dubois. Like, Derek Chisora is good at making elite fighters look bad. So I don't think that's a walk in the park for Ngannou. I think that's a tough fight for him. And it could be one of those where Ngannou goes in there against Fury, everyone thinks he wins, and then they put him against a Chisora and Chisora just knocks him out. You know what I mean? It could be one of those like sort of flash in the pan moments, but I would love to see that. I think that's a good fight.
If you were Ngannou, would you try and go for a more traditional boxing coach, or would you stick with your normal team or your normal camp? Because I said if I was him, I would maybe get the advice of a more traditional boxing coach.
No, he absolutely has to do that. No, I think that's completely true. I think obviously, are you talking about his traditional MMA team?
Yeah.
Yeah, he can't. If you're fighting the elite level top 10 heavyweight boxers in the world, you can't just rely on that unorthodox striking of MMA. You've got to actually be able to have the sweet science down as best as you can to give you your best opportunity. So I agree. I think he does have to train with traditional boxing people.
And obviously in his fight with Fury, he had the unknown factor, but now everybody has video of him, so they know how he can approach them in a boxing fight.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Because there was no videos before that of him sparring and things like that. So it could be a flash in the pan thing, but it's crazy how everyone's minds changed. But obviously, mine did too. Before the fight, I was saying, I would love to see Ngannou knock out Fury for the pure fact of it being exciting. But the idea that we'd get to the final bell and we'd think, oh my God, this could literally go to Ngannou, I never would have predicted that in a million years. So, and then everyone's minds changed now. Everyone's like, Ngannou is a better boxer than Tyson Fury. So I don't know. I feel like this is a huge embarrassment to the boxing.
Let's not be silly.
Yeah, but that's what people are saying. That's what people are saying, People are saying, hold on, how is this MMA fighter gone in there and outboxed not only the heavyweight champion of the world, but the lineal heavyweight champion of the world, someone who has never been beaten? And if Francis Ngannou got the nod that night and got the win, it would have been the biggest upset in the history of boxing. It would have beat Buster Douglas. In my opinion.
I think it, in a weird way, I think that boxing not bad, but I think it put a little bit of a sour note on boxing as a sport, to be honest.
Absolutely. It definitely does. I was watching Chael Sonnen the other day talking about it, and he's a bit harsher with his sort of criticism. He said basically it's what did he say? Boxing is dead. He exposed it as not. No, that's what he said. He said this exposed boxing as not a real sport because in wrestling, which he's obviously from a wrestling background, there is not, no matter who you are, no matter what sport you come from, no matter what influencer, how many followers you have, you cannot go in there and beat the top guys in wrestling. There's just no chance. Whereas now there's an opportunity, now we've seen an MMA guy go in there and a lot of people believe beat the top guy in boxing. So it's definitely a huge embarrassment for boxing, without a doubt.
People are going to believe what they want. Obviously, people are that it was all staged and that it was all planned and whatever, but I don't think that's a fair argument because I think that takes away from Ngannou. That takes away from what Ngannou did.
When fights go the distance and big shots are landed and knockdowns happen, unless someone obviously takes a fall, I don't see how boxing matches can be staged like that. Back in the day, obviously there was a lot of controversy and there has been staged boxing matches, especially sort of like when the mob were involved, like back in the day. But it was usually a fighter that would take money to take a fall and to get quote unquote knocked out. Like they'll just not carry on. When a fight goes the distance, it can't be staged. I don't understand how that and also be so close. Unless there's some mastery involved, like it just doesn't make sense.
I'm not saying that, by the way, that I can imagine.
I know you are. I know you're not.
Purist would make that argument.
Yeah, I'm not saying that many people make the argument. To be honest, I feel like the boxing purists this week have gone quiet. I've not seen a lot of people come out in support of Tyson Fury. I feel like they're probably just hanging the tail between the legs and being like, yeah, let's just forget about this as quickly as possible and move on to another one, because right now this is not a good look for any of us.
I don't think we'll be seeing Tyson in November. Was it November or
December 23rd? No, he's already said now that he doesn't want to do that. So yeah.
I don't think we'll ever see the Tyson usually fight, to be honest. I think there's too many people involved and they want their own way. And unfortunately,
you're right.
And unfortunately, that's what happened in boxing. That's why nobody really invested in sport.
Exactly. I mean, the big fights of the past we've not been able to get. For instance, when Wilder and Joshua were both undefeated, we couldn't get that. And then obviously Joshua versus Fury was the big one that was always teased. Couldn't get that. And obviously a plethora of others. Like it's just tough to make those big money fights.
So going on to MMA or UFC in particular, Tom Aspinall, yeah? Who's he fighting? Is it Pavlovich?
Sergey Pavlovich. That's right, yeah.
I always worry that saying that name wrong.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah, it's not the hardest in the UFC, but it's definitely a tough name to pronounce.
I personally think Aspinall has the advantage on the feet, to be honest. Maybe I'm not thinking that enough, but I just think on the feet, I think Tom Aspinall has the better striking of the two.
I think he absolutely has the better striking of the two. The only thing I worry about is Pavlovich has like that knockout power. He has like ultimate heavyweight power. We saw what he did to Derek Lewis, for instance, and he's a very, very tough fighter to deal with. But in terms of every other facet, in terms of the ground game, in terms of striking, as you've said, in terms of like submissions. Tom Aspinall, in my opinion, is the most well-rounded heavyweight currently in the UFC, with the exception of maybe John Jones. And I think absolutely on November 11th, we're going to see Tom Aspinall become the new interim heavyweight champion of the world. And it should be the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, if we're being honest. But here's the thing. Sergey Pavlovich was the backup fighter in the event of Stipe Miocic and John Jones happening, which obviously now it's not, which means he's been training. Tom Aspinall was meant to be going on holiday. He's not been in a camp. He's taken this fight on 2 weeks' notice. But this is a storybook circumstance similar to when Bisping came in on 2 weeks' notice and took the title from Luke Rockhold. So I think Tom Aspinall wins comfortably.
Do you know Steve Gray? Do you think he's done now? Do you think he's retired? Can he be like in the ring for 3 years? Well, like the cage, whatever you want to call it, for 2 years? And I can't imagine him waiting around for 3 years. But 3 years is a long time in MMA. And
Yep.
to be honest, in his last fight, he got knocked the spark out, if I remember correctly, in his last fight.
It was against Francis Ngannou. I think he should have retired then. I think obviously it's been a few years now. We've not seen anything from him, not heard anything from him. So yeah, he should retire. I don't understand why they're putting that fight on. And obviously, the interesting thing is John Jones pulls out with an injury he got during sparring, and then they offer Stipe Sergey and whoever, and he says he doesn't want to take it. So it's an interesting one. The fans, I guess, the traditional fans that are big fans of Stipe, that a lot of people dub him as the greatest heavyweight of all time, they do want to see that fight. They do want to see him continue in the UFC. But in my opinion, the competition is too stacked. Like I think Stipe gets exposed by a lot of people in the top of the heavyweights now, like Cyril Gane, like Tom Aspinall.
Yeah, I mean that long of a sabbatical outside of the cage. You're basically saying your career's over. I mean, look at I can guarantee that if McGregor comes back, he'll get a finish by a lot of these up and coming fighters because he hasn't been living the fighter lifestyle like every single day.
No, exactly. And that's the thing, you know, we've seen it with McGregor not too long ago. And we'll see what he's like when he comes back, because that's been pushed back. But yeah, Stipe, I don't know. I don't even know if he's a big pay-per-view draw too. I'm not that excited to see Stipe. I'm far more excited for this Tom Aspinall fight and obviously, you know, I'm pretty biased, but I'd rather see Tom Aspinall win a title than Stipe get battered by John Jones.
I would be one of them, by the way. I don't think it's right that you can sit out for 2 years and say I'm not going to fight unless it's a title fight. Like I think they should make you at least fight one fight before you have a title fight.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like that there should be some sort of rules or circumstance around that. But Dana and Colby are very good friends. I think Colby, what's the word? Sort of like he embodies a lot of Dana and the company's beliefs. And I feel like Dana sees money signs when he sees Colby. And I'm not gonna lie, I do believe Colby will win the title in December.
Okay, to the economy with his mouth.
I don't know. Yeah, he's. I don't think he's a pay-per-view draw that people think he is. But he definitely, if he gets a title, I think that changes.
Yeah, but I know people that would literally watch Cody Covington fight just to see him lose. So in that way, he's a pay-per-view draw because there's a lot of fighters, but people just don't care whether they win or lose.
Absolutely, a lot of people hate Colby, and I feel like what we're going to see going into December is a lot of people writing him off before the fight, because people don't realize how good Colby Covington is. Like, he is actually a force to be reckoned with. And when he fights a striker similar to Leon Edwards, like we saw what he did against Masvidal, obviously Leon is a much better striker than Masvidal, but we see Colby go in there and force the striker to fight his style of fight. And if they don't have an answer for that, they are fucked. Now, obviously, Leon Edwards... No worries. Leon Edwards obviously managed to show good takedown defense in the second fight against Kamaru Usman. But in the first fight, bro, he was getting taken down repeatedly. And obviously, if it wasn't for that head kick, people would have looked back at that fight as an embarrassment for Leon Edwards because he got dominated. So Colby is kind of like Usman in terms of his style, with not as good striking, but far better wrestling. And it's interesting that in both of those Colby Usman fights, we actually never saw them really wrestle, because they were both wrestlers. So they kind of were just like, fuck it, let's stand and strike. Now, against Leon, there is absolutely no chance that Colby is going to want to stand and trade with Leon because we know how good of a striker he is. And we know that he can knock him out. And I feel like Colby doesn't want to take that chance, similar to how he didn't want to take that chance against Masvidal, who, by the way, caught him quite badly in that fight. So, yeah, I just feel like people are going to overlook Colby. And I feel like people are going to get a shock when Colby, in my opinion, wins the title in December.
Even though Hayes probably will win the vote, and then we will never get we will never get a UFC pay-per-view in Birmingham.
I know that's what you're after. I feel like you need to be supporting Leon because obviously, if Leon does win, they're gonna do March next year in Birmingham. I can almost not guarantee it, but I don't know what fight they'd do actually. I guess maybe like a Shavkat or Belal or someone like that. A big fight for Leon. I think if he beats Colby and he has got Colby and Usman on his win column, that is a huge statement for Leon.
I guarantee that if he does win, the next couple of days after they will announce the date in Birmingham.
Maybe. Hope so. That would be great. I think they'll definitely do it. They'll definitely do it early next year. Yeah.
Because unfortunately, Birmingham, one of them cities that unless you have a big name from Birmingham on top of the bill, I just don't think it was sell very well. It's not like London. It's not like London, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. And obviously, I was there when Leon fought in London last year in March, and the place was stacked out, and everyone was fucking loving Leon. Which is great to see because Leon for the longest time was overlooked and he wasn't given the same love that Paddy gets, that Tom Aspinall gets, that Darren Till got. So it was great to see everyone back in Usman, back in Leon, and I feel like if he does beat Colby, I mean, oh my god, it would be like fucking crazy. What's the stadium called in Birmingham? Is it the NEC or something?
Yeah, the NEC, yeah.
The NEC, the place will be going absolutely fucking wild for Leon if he has a title defense in his hometown. Everyone would come out. Everyone would come out.
Yeah. So let's see what happened with that. I went back and I watched UFC 9 4. I have to say, like, because in my video yesterday, I kept on saying 249 rather than 294.
I say that all the time because 249, if I remember rightly, that was the last card before COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I imagine people knew what I was talking about because I mentioned the name of the fight, so people knew what I was referring to, so it's not the end of the world. But my point was, I went back and I rewatched Chimaev versus Usman, and Chimaev completely dominated that first round. It was a 10-8 round.
It was. And I saw a lot of controversy around that because people said you can't score it a 10-8 round if he doesn't do anything with that ground control. And it's like, no, he was landing strikes. He was getting submission attempts. And Usman had absolutely zero answers for any of it. That is a 10-8 round. A 10-8 round is when a fighter, one, dominates the other opponent, but also the other opponent doesn't do anything to mitigate that. And I feel like Usman literally couldn't do anything. So it was a 10-8. And I agree.
Yeah. And I also said, in my video that I did yesterday, if Volk had a proper training camp, I guarantee he would not have been taken out with that head kick like he was. Because obviously, when in training camp, your endurance can sometimes build up, can't it?
Yeah, it's not just endurance, but it's also reflex. It's
Yeah,
reflex speed.
That's what I meant. Sorry. Yeah, carry on.
But no, I actually also agree, like your endurance too, the way that like you're able to deal with shots because you're in that moment, you're in that vibe of being of taking drills, of taking shots, doing drills, taking shots, and being conditioned. And that's what training camps are for, to get your body to be strengthened, your endurance to go up, your reflexes to go up. Everything needs to be laser sharp to go into the fight. And he only had 2 weeks to do that. So yeah, I think there's a you're right in saying that if he had a full training camp, that shot wouldn't have caught him.
Yeah, so moving on from combat sport, yeah, because I want to get your advice on stuff, on a couple of things before we start wrapping up.
Okay, no worries.
So do you know, So do you know when I'm making long form videos of me just talking to camera, yeah?
Yep.
Do you think it would be a good idea for me to refer to it as the Anthony podcast, or do I get the interview to Anthony podcast?
I would keep just interviews on the podcast, because a podcast, in my opinion, is like a chat, is a dialogue between two people. Whereas if you're doing like a video, so for instance, if I saw one of your videos and it had like a flashy title, for instance, like say for instance, Tom Aspinall will win the interim title and here's why. If that said podcast next to it, I'll be less likely to watch it, because I'd feel like, okay, this is just a long chat. Whereas if it's just got a normal title without the podcast bit, then it would be better, in my opinion.
Because yesterday I did just chatting episode here, but it was about 19 minutes, and obviously that would be considered a podcast length.
I don't know. I feel like 19 minutes is actually a little bit short for a podcast. I think I would consider something a podcast if it was over 30 minutes, or, over 25, 30 minutes.
Okay. Do you think I should? Do you think I should keep it off my podcast feed on audio platforms, or do you think I should create another audio podcast platform for my just chatting stuff? Because I've noticed people like to listen to my stuff sometimes rather than watching it.
So are you saying you're going to put it on Spotify or something like that, or one of
Yeah.
those? Yeah, I think you should definitely do that. I can't remember exactly. I mean, it's been a long. I used to work on obviously the True Geordie podcast, so we do this often. But with Impulsive, I'm pretty hands off with this stuff. But there's definitely a software that you can use to get things on Spotify.
I've already got stuff on Spotify, but what I'm saying is,
Oh, okay.
you know the episode I did yesterday? Yeah, I put it on the Anthony podcast feed. But what I'm saying is, like, I separate the two feeds, or do you think I should keep it, like, should I keep it all on the one feed?
I think keep it all on the one feed. Yeah, makes it easier for people to find.
Yeah. So in terms of the way Twitter is now, yeah, what would be the best way for me in order to ask people to come on?
Twitter. I think the best thing to do is be active on Twitter. I like what you do, and you send like interviews that you've done to people on Twitter, and just be as active as possible, because unfortunately Twitter is a bit of a cesspool of toxicity and craziness, but it's also where some of the biggest opportunities can be found. Both of my biggest jobs came from Twitter. So and more often than not, like I get asked to do a lot of interviews, and the ones I do accept are either through Twitter DMs or Instagram DMs. So
Yeah.
I do both.
I understand what you're saying, but I prefer Instagram DMs, because I feel like, because the way Twitter is now, yeah, a lot of people don't even bother to look at their replies, because it just toxicity all the time.
Okay, yeah, I agree. And then obviously people then can go on your profile and go, okay, so this is what this guy's about. This is the kind of people he interviews. This is the things he talks about. Yeah, I'd say it's probably better.
And I find people are more likely to respond to Instagram comments, because in comparison to Twitter, Instagram comments are a lot more measured. Well, at least I think so anyway, in comparison to X comments or Twitter comments, whatever you want to refer to it as.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, actually. A good point that you make is, like, when I get a lot of Instagram DMs, I try and go through and reply to all of them. Whereas if people reply to my tweets and things like that, I usually just don't even bother.
Yeah. So how long have we got, mate? 'Cause I know you,
And sorry, I've got to dip in about 5-10 minutes.
yeah, I would start wrapping it up soon now.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, so, so, so obviously you work with a lot of big people in the game. Yeah. You know, if you would have said to you that when you were 15, yeah, one day you're gonna work with one of the most influential people in the world, yeah, what would your reaction be?
It's interesting. It's very interesting, because me and my girlfriend were speaking about this the other day. We saw a post on Twitter that one of our friends shared on Instagram, and it was basically like, if like a few versions of your younger self were in front of you right now, how would they feel? And so that's sort of similar to the question you've just asked. I feel like the fact that I make YouTube videos for a living would be the exciting thing. It would be less about who I'm working for and who I'm working with, and more a case of I get to wake up and spend every day pretty much making content, being creative, because I've always loved being creative. And without knowing, whilst I was at school, I was putting in the 10,000 hours. I was waking up, exporting videos when I was like 11, 12 years old. And I put all the hours in then to be able to do a job now where I'm super creative. So I think me at 15 years old, I would have been really happy, really, excited at that prospect.
So, so when I look back on my journey, I don't like calling it a career because I haven't really done anything. When I look back on my journey, yeah, I can't believe how I used to come across in videos and interviews. How I come across now? Like I feel like I'm I'm a lot more relaxed when I'm interviewing and when I'm doing videos because at the end of the day, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. And that's the thing. Like, you're always your own biggest critic. And that's why when you watch old videos of yourself or old interviews that you've done, or even like I watch old edits that I've done that in the moment I thought were really good. And then you watch them back and you go, actually, this is nowhere near as good as it felt in the moment, you know? So I think that's a good thing to have though, because it's like a constant progress. You know, you watch the interviews you do now, you feel better in the moment whilst you're doing the interviews, and you go, okay, this is far better than the ones I was doing, you know, a few months ago or a few years ago. So it's a good reminder to yourself that you're actually making that positive progress.
But so I did mention me before, just close to what everyone, yeah. But I find it a bit, I don't know how to explain it because I do fight content, yeah. Obviously, the way I describe YouTube, it's like going to a restaurant, yeah. Like if you're doing an MMA video, you get a lot of people coming to you for that. I think it's a bit awkward to then start doing story time videos and so on and so forth. So I guess
Here's what I'll say, because what you've just said there is something that Brian True Geordie, who I used to work with, used to say a lot. Like, YouTube's like a restaurant. Like, you want to constantly give people good quality stuff, because the one time you don't give them good quality stuff, they won't come back. But here's one thing that I feel like trumps everything when it comes to YouTube, and that's authenticity. People follow you because they want to hear your opinions on things. And then if people subscribe, it means they like you and they like your personality. So if you're talking about personal stuff as well as the MMA stuff, people will stick around for that. I feel like it's not really that much of a U-turn. Whereas if you made MMA content and then all of a sudden you're making content about F1, race cars, things like that, then maybe that would be a bit jarring. But you talking about personal stuff and fight content is not that much of a change.
and also I actually, like you can see on my face, I tell people what to expect. Like I talk about a variety of different topics. It would be different. It would be different if I said I'm one of the best MMA commentators on YouTube, wouldn't it? And then I started talking about my daily life. But I
Nah, it'd be
just
fine. I think people would like to see stuff like that. As I said to you before, like, people want to see that peek behind the curtain. They want to see the reality of your life. They want to see, you as a person, what you like to do, where you like to go for food, where you like to watch, what you like to watch. Like, people want to know more about you, you know?
okay, I'll keep that in mind. Thank you for the advice. You want to promote your socials before we wrap it up?
Yeah, sure thing. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's GioTora. That's GIOTORRA. And then Instagram is GioToralba. So same thing, GIOTORRALBA.
And so thank you for coming on, and thank you to everybody watching and listening. And yeah, just thank you for the support, and I will speak to everybody soon.